There's a very interesting argument going around, and at first glance, this actually seems to be quite an intellectual, smart argument. But unfortunately, recently, many people have been selling their souls to Big Pharma and Big Food, and the bad argument out of them spawns. That is this. Soy actually increases your testosterone, and it isn't bad for you. It increases your testosterone because the flavonoids and basically the estrogenic compounds that are in soy bind to they bind to your estrogen receptors in your body, and they block out real estrogen from entering your estrogen receptors. So soy actually binds to them, but real estrogen doesn't. So their thought process is, okay, so since real estrogen doesn't bind, and this part is true, right? The soy compounds actually bind to your estrogen receptors. Since the real estrogen compounds don't bind to your estrogen receptors, that means that, oh, there's no nothing estrogenic happening. If anything, there's a net positive because, the estrogen is not binding. But what they fail to realize is that these flavonoids inside soy still destroy your test. Now, I know I sound like a conspiracy theorist saying, oh, bro, they sold their souls to Big Food and Big Pharma, but it's comedic with some truth. And their whole argument, unfortunately for you vegans and unfortunately for the Indians who can't eat any meat, their argument is completely untrue. Now look, man, I just want to give a message out to the Indians and the Southeast Asians and, the Hindu people, anyone who just watches my content that can't eat meat because of your religion. Gentlemen, I'm never gonna, insult or hate on anyone's religion, well, except that one, right? But I'm not like hating on your religion or anything. But there's a reason that Indians have, number one, the worst physiques, number two, the worst health, number three, like their health is just in the bin, man, right? And you can see that when they actually incorporate meat into their diet, their health gets better. I'm not gonna argue religion here. You can follow whatever you want. I'm just gonna argue health and science perspective, right? There's there's arguments in other religions. Well, why is this true? We're not sure. But this one is just completely true. We know, person who's a vegan, we feed him meat, his health gets better. There's no, there's no shenanigans about it, right? So maybe that should just kind of tell you something. And I'm not, influencing you to stray away from any religion, except that one. I'm not influencing you to stray away or anything. I'm just telling you, man. I really feel for you, man. I genuinely feel for you. And, if I was in your shoes, I don't know what I'd be doing, because it's religion locked, right? Like there's a a lock symbol on meat for you, right? Just keep it in mind that your health will drastically improve, and Uncle Manjeet with his bubble belly isn't really having the best diet, and neither is your 3 billion people or however amount of people live in India, man. We know about androgen receptors, right? Which is what testosterone binds to so that it gets activated. There are also things called estrogen receptors, which are where estrogen goes into the receptor and you get estrogenic effects. This is how SARMs works. Have you ever heard of SARMs, right? SARMs Goblin. The SARMs Goblin going to the gym jacked. Well, SARMs stands for Selective Androgen Receptor Modulators. Androgen receptor. You take that and the androgen receptor you have inside of you, they start like going crazy, on fire, steroids and everything. Well, there are SERMs, Selective Estrogen Receptor Modulators. Guess what's a SERM? Soy. The flavonoids in soy. And how do these problems actually affect you? Well, they destroy spermatogenesis. What is spermatogenesis? It's the production of sperm, basically, right? They downregulate spermatogenesis. And all of these studies showing you that, there's no direct evidence linked to seed oils and issues, and no direct evidence linked to soy and testosterone crash. First of all, they're all bought, they're all paid off. Second of all, there's something called indirect evidence, meaning let's say you consume soy, right? And then your skin gets worse, not your test, your skin gets worse. Then you look at yourself in the mirror and your confidence goes down, therefore decreasing your testosterone, right? The studies will tell you can completely have soy because it doesn't show any negative effects on your test directly. That's the thing. You have to look at science and all of these things with a lens of philosophy, science, and your gut feeling. Like what you feel in your gut, not just science, because you'll be so easily manipulated. So spermatogenesis is downregulated significantly, which might explain the fertility crisis we have. It's just one of the many factors that, causes this fertility crisis, soy and all of these garbage foods that people eat. And in many weird inner circles, like people who are trying to become man to woman, this liberal stuff, they feed them soy. They literally feed them soy so that the transition from male to female, whatever, works out. And that's insane. That should tell you a lot. Now, what's my point here? What am I trying to tell you? Am I trying to tell you never have soy again? No, probably one day you'll take your girl out and, you'll accidentally have a steak cooked in fucking soybean oil, or, you'll drink wine or have ice cream or something and there's bullshit inside of it. I'm not saying never have that again. I'm saying don't be misled. And if you're gonna have something, at least own up to it and say, yep, that's not really good for me, but I'm allowing it for the moment. I'm at some point I'm gonna have a cigar at some point, right? I know it's not good for me, but it's just for the moment. We can't just live 24/7 in this box of, I am self-improvement, bro. Hamza told me, Andrew Tate told me, never. You get the point. Everyone says different things, right? But there are some things that are just simply, unrefutable. So follow who you trust, follow your gut, and follow your philosophy. Some people say, only eat plants, it will make you healthy. The science disagrees with it. Actually, some scientists, vegan better, but scientists will say go vegan, scientists will say go carnivore. So what do we listen to then? You have your gut feeling, what makes more sense, and your philosophy. What do I believe to be more right? Were we hunters or were we farmers, back when we were at our healthiest? Whatever, you have your own philosophy. Now, does this mean you can never hit your goals, without eating soy or whatever? Well, it depends on your goal. There are people who are more rich than me. There are people who are more jacked than me who still eat Oreos. Does that mean you should eat Oreos? Well, again, it's your philosophy. If these people stopped eating Oreos, maybe they'd actually do better. Maybe they'd have a better physique. Maybe they'd be more jacked. Maybe they'd be more rich, etc., etc., etc. But they have their own agenda and they have their own philosophy. What is my agenda? Stop eating dog food and eat real food. Your life will be better in every way. Even if you're more rich and you're more jacked than me, you'll get even richer and more jacked. What do Oreos benefit to a bodybuilder? Nothing. You're just destroying your potential. Well, Ali, why is he richer and jacked than you? There's a lot of different reasons. There's different timelines, right? There's so many. Maybe his level 50 is like this much power, but my level 50 will be that much power. But right now I'm only at a level 10. So you don't really see me competing with that person. Whatever, right? You get the point. It's different timelines and you'll reach your own timeline soon enough, right? If this video helped you, if you want to chat to me pretty much every single day, join Blackthorn, first link in the description. And if you want to triple your test, start Biogenesis, which is also in Blackthorn Capital. Wish not for a lighter load before stronger back.